Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the March 20 meeting of the Chatham Finance Committee. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 29-23 signing of the Acts of 23, extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the opening meeting law until March 31, 2025, fast approaching. This meeting of the Chatham Finance Committee is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. Reminder that people who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress might do so by calling 508-945-4410. Again, 508-945-4410 and enter conference ID 504-285-8 hashtag 504-285-8 hashtag. Or one may join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Chatham TV, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. So let's start with a roll call, and then we'll discuss what we're going to do. Tommy Doan?
Here.
Barb Madison is not present today. John Papalardo is not. Joanne Sprague?
Yes, here.
Ann Young?
Here.
Kristen Andres?
Here.
Casey Shields is not here with us today. Eric Whiteley?
Yes.
The chairman is here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have a quorum. Contrary slightly to the posted agenda, we're going to move things around a little bit today just for this, as a result of various externalities. We're going to start first with the Article 49 consideration, which is the seasonal communities designation. So with that, unless, Carrie, you have something to say, I'll turn it over, I think, to Gloria McPherson, who is online, I believe. Gloria.
Hi, everyone. I'm here. Sorry, it's a little unexpected for me. I thought that Carolyn was going to be here to present the article.
You do too.
I guess, I know. So the article is to adopt the seasonal communities designation in the Affordable Homes Act. It's something that has to be done by a community if they want to take advantage of the things that it provides. I think we had a discussion about this at a prior meeting, but just really briefly, it would enable us to create a year-round housing trust. It would enable us to put money in a year-round housing trust fund. We could do year-round deed restrictions. It allows the creation of attainable and year-round housing. So we're not even talking about affordable housing at all in the seasonal communities part of the act. But you can do attainable and year-round housing specifically targeted to municipal employees, artists and writers, which have a long cultural history on the Cape. And then there are a few things that we would have to do in order to have that designation, because there are a lot of benefits. And some of the things that we would have to do include pass zoning that would, Carolyn just texted and said she can't get on. I'm not sure why, but we'd have to pass zoning that would allow for tiny homes, which are 400 square feet or less, but those homes would have to be year-round and attainable. And we would also have to pass zoning that would allow for the development of single-family homes on undersized lots in a zoning district. And those houses would also be restricted to year-round. And I'm available for any questions. I know that we had some emails going back and forth.
We
too,
didn't,
so I know
and thank you for the information that you
well-versed.
conveyed to the committee. Comments or questions for Gloria? Kristen.
A couple of questions. Thank you for sending the map that, the GIS map that showed the layers of the undersized lots around town. I was hoping we could show that map online today just for the public to be able to see that. Again, I think my big concern is just by accepting this designation with the requirement of allowing that zoning change, I think there's a lot of unknowns, and so I'm still hesitant, even though, thank you for answering a bunch of questions, but I'm still concerned about the unknowns of what this zoning is really going to look like in the end. And I guess my one question is, how do these things get enforced? So if there's a year-round deed restriction, how does the town enforce that? I know that having worked for the town, issuing zoning violations is not necessarily something anybody relishes, and it becomes extremely resource intensive to try to enforce that sort of thing. So I'm wondering whether the Commonwealth helps with that, or how you see enforcement of year-round restrictions.
So we are, as a county, gearing up for that reality that more communities are going to be creating attainable housing units, more communities are going to be creating year-round housing units. Chatham signed on along with, I think, 13 of the other 15, or yeah, 12 of the other 15 towns, so 13 total, to continue a countywide pilot program of housing support in the next year. And I just spoke with the chair of the ZBA about this because she's she's one of the county delegates, so would be involved in this program. But one of the things that we're working on in the next year is, formulating and crafting these year-round restrictions, and also developing and establishing a monitoring program, which hopefully, and this was a large part of my conversation with Randy yesterday, hopefully the county will be able to probably not take this on themselves, but hire consultants like they are now. Like they've hired consultants for us to work on these deed restrictions, among other housing issues. But hopefully in the next few years, as more towns sign on to seasonal communities and we get more year-round restrictions, we'll have a really strong countywide monitoring program in place. That's the dream. And we're actually working toward it. It's not just a dream.
Thank you. Just as a follow-up to the enforcement, I don't want to go down a rat hole here, but it just raises all these issues of how you enforce year-round a deed restriction, because people's lives change. So if they suddenly are not able to be here for at least 6 months out of the year, they have to sell their house. I don't, how does that? So anyway.
Well, if they're not here, I'm presuming it's because they're working somewhere else, and then they would have the option of either selling their house or renting it year round. The deed restriction isn't necessarily for the owner. I mean, the owner can rent it year round. But yeah, like any monitoring program would be, on an annual basis, just like with affordable housing, on an annual basis, they do income verification, and on an annual basis, we would have to do verification that people are living there. I think that the state has like a 10 out of 12 months out of the year residency requirement for year round. Although I think we'll get more guidance on that. But yeah, it'll be verified annually, and a lot of these things are yet to be worked out, but we're looking at it, and I'm pretty clear that we can come up with something. Other states do this. So there's no reason why we can't do this. It's just coming up with a program that, works countywide, that we can all be satisfied with, where we can have, someone come in and be the monitoring agency for these particular units.
Joanne, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for the explanation. I think this is an excellent tool for us to use in our object of attaining affordable and more attainable housing in Chatham. Nothing really happens until we establish the rules. Everything goes before the Zoning Board of Appeals. We have to set up ways of doing all of this, but this gives us, I believe, a head start in aiming toward and making it maybe a little easier to put in practice the things we want to do to gain more affordable housing, more affordable and attainable housing. So I'm going to vote in favor of this because I think we need it in order to take that next step, a big step and a broadening step. Might not all be perfect, but we have the tools in here to do some of the things we want to do and need to do. We don't have to use all of them, but it gives us the tools to do some of the things we need to do to get more housing.
Thank you, Joanne. Further comments or questions? Gloria, I've got...
Can I make one
Go ahead,
clarification, Stephen? I just want to clarify that the seasonal communities acceptance is all about attainable and year-round housing. There's nothing about affordable housing in this. It's all attainable and all year round.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So a couple of questions. First, there seems to be a little bit of inchoate atmosphere around much of this. Do you feel as though the state has provided sufficient guidance for us to move forward in crafting whatever we need to craft? Because I think we've been getting some answers of, we haven't really heard from the state yet. We're waiting to hear from the state. We're waiting to hear from the state. Do we have enough to make this work? Would it be prudent to wait a year and see what we finally get from the state?
So in my opinion, we have enough to work with. So some things are actually spelled out in the law, like what we have to do. We have to do zoning for undersized lots. We have to do zoning for tiny homes. The guidance that we're going to get is going to be something like you have to make sure, and this was what happened in MBTA communities when they had these mandates along with their zoning. It would be something like you have to allow these anywhere single family homes are allowed. Or you have to allow them wherever, multifamily homes, like guidance like that, that isn't necessarily going to stop us from moving forward at this point. I mean, it'll give us a few more details, but I think it would be more the parameters within which we have to do this. Like, we're not going to have to pass zoning that allows, tiny homes in every zoning district. What zoning districts are going to be required? I think that's likely to be some of the guidance. And to pass on to the rest of the committee, and I know, Stephen, you and I talked about this, one of the reasons that I like the idea of being an early adopter of this is because the working group is working on recommendations to the state for different types of grant programs that can be available and can apply to seasonal communities. And I'm thinking of some housing programs that are now only open to like gateway communities, which I know that there's been talk about opening it up to seasonal communities as well. But it would be great if we accepted seasonal communities and could be in that first round of going for grants when we know that these programs are capitalized. Like, I don't want to adopt it a year later and find out that the, whatever it is, $2 million or $5 million that was put in the grant fund has already gone to like Nantucket and Provincetown and other early adopters.
That's helpful, thank you. Do we know what other communities on the Cape have adopted or are anticipating adopting at a town meeting this year?
So I do know Nantucket and Provincetown.
Okay.
So that's why I brought those up.
Okay. For those who think that, looking at the map that Kristen referenced, there's a lot of prospective, dare I call it open space, but lots that I suppose could be subdivided into these tiny lots, 10,000 square feet. Does community development have any assessment, and I imagine it's kind of a dark art, how many of these might be subject to, how many of those are close to sewer, how many would be required to put in an IA system, which my recollection last time I did are rather expensive? Any thoughts on that?
So we created that map with GIS to turn around quickly for you guys. We haven't gone through and analyzed or organized all of the lots that are shown. Some of them will probably drop off because there might be wetlands or easements or other things like that. And of course, there's going to be a big difference in development potential, whether it's on sewer or septic. I think that for a septic lot of 10,000 square feet, I think that you're limited to, and this is with Board of Health approval, like 2 bedrooms and an IA system. And when you think about the cost of construction, how high it is on the Cape, and when you think about the cost of a lot, even if it's an undersized lot, and the cost of an IA system, I think that the idea that we're going to see a building boom on undersized lots, especially where there's no sewer available, I think that that's not really plausible, because I mean, think about the attainable housing developments that we're starting to do on Stepping Stones Road and 127 Old Harbor Road. I mean, there's an acknowledgement of both the Affordable Housing Trust and the Select Board that we're going to have to subsidize those units. Like, it's going to cost the town, X number of hundreds of thousands of dollars per unit to close the affordability gap between what you could get market rate and what you could get at an attainable level. So the idea that some developer or builder is going to buy an undersized lot, put in an expensive septic system, and then sell that unit at an attainable price is pretty unrealistic, I think. When I look at that, and I know, Stephen, you and I talked about this a little bit. When I look at that section and think that's going to impact Berkshire County because Berkshire County has a lot of land. Their lot sizes are larger. There are some towns that have like 3 and 5 acre zoning. And the cost of construction is so low. So I can see like a small house maybe penciling out in those circumstances. I think it would be really difficult to have that work out here. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but I mean, think about our ADU regulations. We've had them for I don't know how many years, and we have like 2 ADUs. So it's just, I mean, the market's not there for that, and builders are going to build to the market.
Okay, that's helpful. I do recall the conversations around the ADUs when it was prognosticated by some that it was going to destroy the town of Chatham. Okay, further comments or questions? Joanne, please.
Just a quick question. When you talk about tiny houses, that sounds to me like affordable housing. That's considered, will be considered attainable housing as well?
So it would under seasonal communities. And I think the idea behind limiting the size but not putting that kind of affordability restriction on it is that the small size would be like naturally attainable. It would be, smaller square footage, so smaller overall cost.
Thank you.
Okay, further comments or questions? I see that Carolyn McClellan has joined the call. Carolyn, are you there? And if so, is there anything you'd like to add to this? I understand you've got a bit of a deadline.
Yes, I am, and I'm sorry I had a lot of difficulty signing on for some reason. So I missed most of the conversation. I assume Gloria was able to go over some of the questions you had pertaining to the particular zoning issues and the questions that you presented. And I just want to say that I can't express enough how important this is as a tool moving forward for our community. Specifically, just the year-round deed restrictions as a tool that we can use to build housing without being all doom and gloom. I mean, really, if you look at a generation from now or 2 generations from now, the potential to lose almost all of our year-round housing stock as properties turn over is a real thing. And you only have the affordable housing that we have in the community that has a deed restriction on it. Being able to use these year-round deed restrictions without the affordability or making it affordable, but maybe having a higher AMI attached to it is really going to be a vital part to sustaining our year-round population and everything we love about Chatham, rather than it just becoming a resort destination with no real character or authentic character. This is what we've been fighting for so long. It would be really tragic not to have it embraced by the community moving forward. So I guess that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Any comments from the audience? There being none, I'll take a motion to support the adoption of the seasonal communities designation, noting that the select board have voted to approve this 4-0 to 0.
So moved.
Second,
Thank you. Support. Tommy?
Yes.
Joanne?
yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Kristen?
No.
Eric?
Yes.
And the chair supports. 6-1. I'm sorry, 5-1. All right, moving on. I think we can briefly touch on the Affordable Housing Trust, given that Gloria and Carolyn are both here, and then we're going to move on to the West Chatham articles.
That's been removed from the warrant.
It's been removed from the warrant?
Yep.
Okay. Well,
sorry.
thank you, Carolyn and Gloria. And we're going to move on to Article 39, West Chatham.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you both.
Thanks, guys. West Chatham Neighborhood
everyone.
Center, number 1, and then we'll do Article 40. Is Kathy still on?
Kathy is still on. Do you want to do the sewer
Yeah,
first?
would you guys mind if we just let Kathy do the sewer one, which I think will be rather quick, and we can let her get back to work? Thanks, appreciate that. Hello, Kathy.
Hello, members of the Finance Committee.
I am here to talk to you about Article, I believe it is 23, to establish a Chatham Sewer Assistance Program. As you recall, the Water and Sewer Advisory Committee has recommended that the town consider this, and the select board took that and directed staff to kind of look into how the town could establish that. And so what you have before you is an article that would basically appropriate $50,000 from free cash to lay the groundwork for formalizing an assistance program. I did research on other programs, both countywide and statewide. There is a program called the Cape Cod Aqua Fund, and that offers low interest betterment loans to residents at a 0%, 2%, 4%, or 5% interest rate. And that is something that is done through the county and handled through their program. However, the town of Orleans has implemented a program that supplements the Cape Cod Aqua Fund. What we're proposing Chatham would do is something similar to what the town of Orleans has done and provide $2,000. We're estimating around that amount from that $50,000 to residents who would qualify. At this time, we don't have a formal policy. This is really just requesting funds be appropriated so that we can further develop a policy that would outline the application process and basically how the program would work in terms of distributing the funds and whether it would be a grant or a loan. So with that, the select board did preview this on Tuesday, voted in favor of it. I believe it was unanimously recommended. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Terrific, thank you. Questions, please? Eric?
Thank you. The county program that you mentioned, the reason that it needs supplement is because it doesn't offer a full amount in the form of a loan of the cost of the hookup for someone?
It's not that it doesn't offer the full amount, but it does allow additional costs. There are sometimes additional costs associated, and what the director of the Cape Cod Aqua Fund, Alice Ryan, who will be presenting to the select board at our April 1st meeting, has found is that there's a deposit sometimes asked for because of the high demand for engineering and design services. So what she has found, other towns that haven't quite yet formalized a program like Orleans, they've been able to provide funds to residents to help offset those costs while using the fund to handle the bigger cost of the actual connection and all of that additional work.
Thank you.
Other questions? Kathy, do we have a sense of prospective population for the various 0 to 4% loans? Do we roughly know, are these hundreds, are they tens, are they a couple thousand?
I did not ask that, but I can get that information for you. I do want to note that the 0% loans are only available to year-round residents. The 0 and 2% loans are only available to year-round residents. Orleans has implemented a stipulation, and we're discussing possibly implementing a similar stipulation that in order to qualify for this assistance program, you would need to qualify for the 0% loan through the Aqua Fund in order to be approved for the funds through this sewer assistance program. Again, the policy hasn't been formalized yet, and we're hoping to do that in the coming weeks and come back with a more formalized policy. But again, I don't know, but I can find out for you.
Yeah, that might be useful information to have at hand at town meeting. I don't think it's something that would lead us to delay a vote on this. So with that said, Article XX, establish a Chatham Sewer Assistance Program. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, support. Tommy?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Chair's in favor, 6-0. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you very much.
Okay. West Chatham, here we go.
Thank you for inviting us back. Appreciate it. I'm not sure there's any more I need to present on this. I certainly can go over any other items that you would like to, or we can go right into questions, comments.
So my understanding in talking to Katie yesterday was that there was a long presentation, a summary presentation, or no presentation. And I think if not, it would be, it would not be imprudent, I think, if we could get the summary presentation again, just to, in case anybody wasn't watching on Tuesday, and just make it clear to us.
Okay.
So we'll take the summary, please.
Okay, so the summary is just 6 slides. The map, what we have up here is Route 28 going through the middle, George Ryder Road, top left. 500 feet east of that, west of that is the western limits. It includes Marketplace to the south. And then to the east side of the district, Barn Hill Road is the south road that's going off of 28. 800 feet to the east of that is the easterly limit of it. It carries all the properties to the north and the south, and about, I would say, 20 or so that are outside of the frontage off of 28.
I would just tell you that this map amendment, the zoning map amendment, is contingent upon the other bylaw being adopted.
Understood, thank you.
Okay, so this is the principal breakdown of the zones within the district. We set up a frontage zone, that's the A1 zone, that's 150 feet from the front property line. That zone has a mixed use in it. We want commercial to be there, and they would be allowed to have a residential component in there. That one we set up so it requires a minimum 50% of commercial uses so that we have a balance. Behind that, that would be zone A2, that's in the gray. Those are still the properties that front on 28. Those are the largest area of the West Chatham Neighborhood Center. A2 allows mixed use also, but it doesn't have a requirement that it has to be commercial elements in it. They can have as much commercial as they like. However, if they want to put a full residential component in there, that would be fine. And then the B zone is the properties which are do not front on Route 28. They could be on the side roads, South George Ryder Road, Marketplace, and off of Weldon Way. Those properties are, I think, pretty, is a commercial component allowed in those? I can't remember. I'd have to take a look at the use table. There's about 20 plus uses in the use table, and they define the A1, A2, and the B zones of what is allowed either as of right, special permit, special conditions. We certainly would expect there to be some element of residential in these lots. When we did our build-out analysis back in September, this was provided to us by a consultant, BSC Group. We were sort of surprised at the draft that we had from June. That showed a higher concentration of residential than we were expecting, almost a non-existent concentration of commercial. So we made 4 adjustments to the bylaw at that point. We increased the zone A1 from 100 feet to 150 feet because the 100 feet was what we started with. We required a minimum 50% commercial in that A1 zone. There was no requirement before on that except for the first 30 feet of the building which fronts on Route 28. And if you take a look at the numbers, that's a very small number then. We adjusted the density. The density was at 12 units per acre, and we reduced that down to 10. But there's only 5 units as of right, and anything beyond that is a density bonus, and it's by special permit, and there's a lot of requirements that an applicant has to go through to meet that. We added common area landscaping as part of the residential, in particular in the A2 district. We see that there could be multiple residential units there, and if it's just parking and sidewalks, there's a lot of pavement, so we called for a component of a common space landscaping in there. And we required 2 parking spaces per residential unit. The reason why we did that is there's no public parking in the district right now, not like it is in the old village center. So we established this, but we also put in link parking and shared parking to enhance the ability of, if someone goes to a particular location, parks their vehicle, they could, there's sidewalks there, pedestrian paths, they could walk to each of the other businesses and they wouldn't have to just drive. So we're trying to manage parking, we're trying to manage traffic too, associated with some of these components. So once we made these changes, which occurred right after that September of 2024, we hired Union Studios to provide some visualization for us. Sometimes it's hard for us, even as board members, to visualize what this would look like. So with all the changes that we made after that, these are what we would anticipate some of the applications will look like. This happens to be the post office property. That's currently on the right side. It's more of a perpendicular building to 28. The commercial building would be up front. In this particular one, the 2 buildings to the rear of that commercial building up front, that could be either commercial, all commercial, or it could be a mix of commercial and residential. That's at about the 150-foot line. The property, the structures to the rear of that would be all the residential. That's an example. This would be 10 units per acre design. This is a 3-acre site. We anticipate that a higher density may be pursued by an applicant on the larger properties. It doesn't really lend itself to half-acre or 3/4 acre, and there's a few of those in the district. So these are the ones, there's about 3 or 4 of these sites of this size. This is the type that we would see perhaps using that higher density. Next. Okay, so this is the property just to the east of Ocean State. It's a narrow property, but it's very deep. So here's an example of the commercial building up front, access to the side. The residential buildings would be in the back. That's to the rear of the 150-foot setback. There's a common area, green space that's in there, as we're showing. And here's, if you go behind the commercial building, you see a stub road that goes to the adjacent property at Ocean State. That's an example of the linked parking that we would be pursuing, and every one of the applicants who come before us, we would want to see that so that we could manage that traffic component as well as the parking component. Next. This is the Chapel property. Now, here, the last property was 10 units per acre. This is 5 units per acre of what residential would look like. Because the majority of this site is all within the 150-foot buffer, the commercial would be on the lower level of these, and residential would be on the upper level. Parking would all be in the rear, and again, it would have a green space associated with it. These are not proposals. These are just suggested ideas about how the district would develop if the bylaw is passed. We have a good tool with our site plan review process. If an applicant comes in, they have to have a pre-submission. They would sit down and show us some concepts like this. not engineering, but ideas of how to arrange the whole site. And that's where we would go with a back and forth to develop what the actual character of the site would be, the buildings, the arrangement, et cetera. And I think that's the 6-slide summary.
Terrific. Thank you. Comments and questions, please. Andy?
In reading the material, I came across a couple of things I was curious about. And the first is the idea that in striving for attainable housing or affordable housing, there's some requirements for provisions over a certain size development. And the attainable is defined as no more than 125% of the area median income. Where did the 125% come from? Because we see attainable housing defined in many different ways, including 200% of area median income. So is this a magic number, or?
No, this is not a magic number. We worked closely with Gloria, or I should say the planning board worked closely with Gloria, the sustainability and housing director, on this particular item. So she provided a lot of guidance with regard to state opportunities that are available.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Gloria drafted up all of the affordable and attainable housing sections of this. Her suggestion on this was, we have a density of 5 as of right. The 5th unit would be affordable. If there was a higher density that was pursued, that would be the attainable piece, and this is the criteria she was recommending for those units.
Okay, I guess I just, the disparity between how attainable housing is being defined as opposed in regard to the Barnstable County area median income is just the part I'm focusing on and sort of going, how do we end up with something like that?
Well, I would just observe, Andy, that I would offer that typically in the conversations around attainable housing in Chatham, attainable means 200%.
Right.
In kind of all of the other conversations, so I'm not, again, I note the discrepancy as well.
Right, and so it just, is it, and of course, this is zoning bylaw, so it can't change it easily. But, I mean, I think you would find it worthwhile to entertain at least the idea of a higher percentage for the attainable piece. My second question has to do with the idea of payment in lieu. The definition here is along the lines of, payment in lieu is, something of the average construction cost of a unit in the development. Why focus on construction cost instead of cost plus developer's profit?
Well, this has gone back and forth.
I'm sure it has.
The latest one came from town council. He was the one that suggested this language. This is not the way we started. It was something that could be fixed on because if the base units have X dollars of cost, then that's the basis of what would be a payment in lieu would be based on. So that was his recommendation for the language. We had different language in there before, but he came back and said this is a better way to go because you can define this. When you get outside of that, when you talk about values or something like that, it's more subjective. This is more concrete, and that's what he was trying to do with that recommendation.
Sure, but I mean, you could say construction cost plus 15%, or construction cost
I see
plus
what you're
20%.
saying.
And something that represents, what the developer's expected profit would be on something like this.
The way Gloria had set this up, she thought that we were looking, when someone does 2, 3, or 4 units, that we're looking for some contribution to a affordable housing fund for this. Until the 5th unit is built, there's nothing actually that's going to be constructed. So therefore, that's a contribution that could be used for other purposes. So it's a straightforward way as her suggestion of how to go about doing this.
Okay. I just, obviously, I would prefer that it be on-site.
Yep.
But, if your threshold is 5 units, there's not much you can do about that. right? You've got to get to the 5 or above before you can really kick this in.
That's correct. Yeah. But there is a requirement that once you go there, you got to build it. That it's not a payment in lieu on the fifth unit. The
Right.
fifth unit, which is affordable, has to be built.
I guess I'd urge, consideration of requiring, offsite or some other, something else besides just cash payment in lieu of, but there may be no other.
We had all sorts of suggestions on that. This is the first pass, I think, that the town's done to this degree with affordable and obtainable. We had, when Gloria joined the town, she was very helpful in suggesting, recommending, and drafting some of this. So we were looking for her guidance and her background associated with this. So as the product you see here is mostly through that support.
So again, this is just a last option, let's say, or
Yeah.
they're gonna have to be built on site for the most part. This is just,
Yeah.
a very few exceptional things that this would apply to.
My last question had to do with the affordable unit, or I should, attainable unit. It says specifically deed restricted above 80% AMI shall be affordable in perpetuity or for the longest time allowed by law. Is there some reason to believe it would not be perpetuity?
Yes, this is another clarification by town council. The affordable unit is not a problem to have it in perpetuity, but attainable is not necessarily the case. That might be a requirement as what's allowed by law. It could be 50 years, 99 years. So his assessment on that is if you only leave in perpetuity in there, and might be kicked by the Attorney General's office. So he added this language at the end there to cover that particular case.
I also think it's important to point out that the purpose of this bylaw was not to create affordable housing. I mean, it ends up being part of it, but the main purpose of this bylaw from when it was first started was to create a village center within the community.
No, I understand that part. But having created it, wouldn't it be nice to think that it would be there in perpetuity that way? Right? That's mine. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Further comments or questions? I've got a couple. Could you guys comment, please, on the height? We'll go back maybe to one of the kind of spec build-out maps. The height restrictions in the district?
Okay, so it's 30 feet, just like everywhere else in town. We established that the buildings, if they do not have the affordable unit as applied to it, it's 2 stories only. The only buildings that would be 2.5 stories would be an affordable unit that's in that building. So we're trying to, again, manage the massing of this a little bit, because if there's going to be a lot of standard units, we don't want to just keep going up and up and up. So this was, again, a recommendation to deal with massing and other components of it, and try to allow some flexibility once you get to an affordable unit.
And when we speak about units, or when you speak about units, talking about, for example, 10 units per acre, 50% of which need to be commercial.
Right.
What's a unit?
A unit is...
An apartment a unit? Is a house a unit?
It's a housing unit. We talk with DPW director on this. That's the way they take a look at their infrastructure on that. They review it as a unit. It could be 1 bedroom, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, but that's considered a unit. And we asked him about that, and he says, it almost didn't make any difference on the side. The demand, the wastewater and all that seemed to be the same no matter how many bedrooms that you had in that particular structure. So that helped us a little bit in defining this, and I believe that this is typically the way zoning deals with this. They refer to it as a unit,
Yeah, so typically it's a dwelling unit.
dwelling unit.
Okay, so let's just take, for example, the one on the corner there with, looks to be a little bit of a front porch, then an entryway, then another set of glass windows and 4 windows across each facade, and then a peak and a dormer. presumably, does that reflect 2 commercial units, for example, on the bottom, would you guess? And some number of residential units above, or is that
That's
all
correct.
one unit?
There could be, depending upon the square footage in the footprint, they could have 2 units, 3 units, depending on how many bedrooms they put in and how many other features that they put in each of the units. So if the floor area is, I think in the front, it's 3,000 square feet, you could have 3 1,000 square foot units, or 2 1,500 square foot units. So each zone has its footprint criteria for each of the structures.
Okay, so colloquially, a unit could be, and I'm sorry to beat this, but I just want to be clear. A unit could be defined as an apartment, for example?
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
All right.
So remember, the commercial aspect of it too is dependent upon the use, right? So, that makes a difference if it's a restaurant versus a retail versus an office space or something like that. So that's also all plays into how we move forward with things.
So it's a good point you bring up, because in this particular case, on this proposed site, if the bottom floor was all commercial, then the top floor could be entirely residential. Now, if they went up to another story, the half story on this, because there's affordable unit in there, they, again, the entire unit would have to be equivalent in square footage to the commercial that's in a lower level. Again, this applies to that first 150 feet. And
Right.
beyond that, it's no longer the same criteria.
Yep, understood. So just riffing off of one thing that Andy mentioned, can you speak to the process of amending this? If it gets past the town meeting and we're 3 or 4 years in and we're seeing the law of unintended consequences, how difficult would it be? What's the process around making changes to this?
Oh, we've already have a list of things that we would consider right off the bat, because there was so many refinements to this when the town council came on board. There were 4 reviews of it by his office. We're thankful for all those reviews because they helped refine the language. But we understood right away that there could be an element of revision in the future, and we think that certainly, since this is the first one of this type in our town,
Right.
we would like to see how this does play itself out with some applications, and then make some adjustments if it's so necessary. We don't think that this is a once and done type thing.
Good, okay.
Like any zoning amendment that happens, it would go before town meeting and we would make changes accordingly. One of the things that we anticipate here, I don't want to give you the impression that the planning board is rushing through it and getting this bylaw forward, because they've been working on it for, over 10 years now. I think, like the guidance that is received from, with regard to seasonal communities that you were talking about earlier today, or something else, that might impact this. That being said, we can't wait for, forever for all of that guidance to come forward, because there's going to always be new things and there are going to always be things, but we do anticipate having, being open to revisions if needed.
Okay, good, thank you. Kristen, please. Oh, sorry, unless Andy was this tangential to?
Well, actually, no, it's a little more specific.
All right, so let's go to Kristen, since she had her hand up first.
Go for it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
What a gentleman.
Yes, this has been, I'm fully supportive of having zoning around our village centers. It's been more like 20 years, I think. So I appreciate the planning board's effort on this. My question is about really, how do we mesh the change in zoning with our sewer flow and dealing with that? How does that get rectified?
Okay, so we did invite the DPW Director, Rob Frawley, to our meeting, and we had a fairly long discussion with him about this. And this is what we learned. This West Chatham Neighborhood Center is broken up into 2 halves as far as how the sewer flows work. It's pretty much in the middle, right about where the medical center is. The east half goes down to a pump station at Barn Hill Road. the west half goes down to George Ryder Road Pump Station. There's a gravity pipe that's in 28. There's no problem with the gravity flows in that pipe. It's only about 40% used. Once you get past an average of 4 units per acre for the entire district, that's when it would trigger a build-out of the pumps, just the pumps and not the whole pump station, and upgrade those to a larger flow capacity. Because there's a sufficient capacity in the line where that force main would discharge to, which is 28, all they would have to do is swap out for larger flow pumps, and depending upon where the development is. If it's on the west side, and then it's just the George Ryder Road Pump Station that would have to do that. He also mentioned that these are pretty close to 20 years, and in the neighborhood of 30 years or so, it's often something that they do upgrade with pumps. We don't expect that this is going to be, dozens of sites coming across in here. But so if you take a look at the first site and it comes in with 12 units total on the site, that might be a little bit more than the average of 4, but we wouldn't have to change anything until it got to that point. So he also told us that the cost associated with this is very manageable. It's a couple $100,000 to change out the pumps in the pump station. It's not millions and millions of dollars. So we thought that was all adjustable and could work with what we were proposing.
Thank you. Just as a quick
Please.
follow-up, so, but there'll have to be regulation changes, sewer regulation changes, right, for flow?
Well,
and that
what
sort
we have associated with this, to make sure that we just don't jump the gun, the only time that this would be the case would be when you go to the density bonus. That is a special permit. It has a criteria that the wastewater and the domestic water flows have to be signed off by the DPW associated with that. If they have a problem with it, then we could do a couple of different things. We could allow the applicant just to build the 5 units by right, and they could come back later on with the others once the upgrade has been done. So we put some checks and balances in this particular one because we were concerned about just leaving it wide open.
The DPW director had no concerns with the bylaw. He's reviewed the bylaw. He did give them like extensive, information to move forward. We know that the pumps are going to have to be, even if nothing happens here, the pumps are probably going to have to be changed within the next 10 years anyway. This is not something that, is going to cost the town more money regardless, just because you're doing this district, and creating this district, it's not something that's going to cost more money with regard to sewer in this particular case. It's something that's going to happen anyway, just because of things that are going on in the town and in the Cape, regardless.
Andy, please.
Thank you. Actually, Kristen's kind of sort of struck something in my head, and that is, does this incorporate somehow the maximum heights allowed for the airport landing zones?
We did not define that. It's not something that was.
We are not going any higher in this
Well,
particular zone.
that's correct. We do indicate that. What we did with the RPZ that's in this district is we tried to work with the airport commission associated with this by saying new residential would not be allowed. Existing, pre-existing, that stays there for as long as they want. If they rebuild, for example, the Ocean State development, and that's, say, 50,000 square feet. If they wanted to redevelop that, they could to the exact same square footage. It could do it in multiple buildings. They had to bring the buildings up front.
Right.
But the height couldn't be any higher than what it is today. So we're trying to keep the conditions as much as possible in what they are.
No, thank you, I appreciate it. But the involvement of Rob, also suddenly made me think, incremental development that requires an expansion of sewer capacity. Was there any consideration given to the idea of impact fees?
We did talk about that a little bit, and I think the conclusion that was given to us for this, where we were on this, is they might not be allowed. And so we didn't want to go there, at least underneath the bylaw. That might be something that the DPW, together with Water and Sewer, would do.
Impact fees are typically not legal anyway. There's certain ways that has to be orchestrated if something comes up.
Right, I beg to differ. I believe in a district of critical planning concern, they are legal.
Yeah.
And if we were to ask for that designation for this area,
Right.
we would be able to assess them. It's, clearly, there's a trade-off.
There's a trade-off, yes.
Because, we're encouraging development in a certain manner, but we're also spending millions and millions and millions of dollars installing sewer system. So incremental building, incremental requirements for flow in the sewer is going to cost more money to the town.
I guess what I should have said is, we can't use the terminology, impact fees.
I But, the practical effect would be the same. All right, no, thank you.
We can call it a service fee.
One could.
That's exactly right.
Okay. Further comments or questions? If not, I'll take a motion to support Article 39, the zoning bylaw amendment for the West Chatham Neighborhood Center, noting that the planning board voted 6-0 in favor, the select board voted 4-0 in favor. Or motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any further comments or questions? If not, Tommy?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
And chair supports 6-0. And now I believe we have a affiliated map change, if I'm not mistaken, for Article 40.
Correct.
I'm sorry, I jumped the gun.
A good majority of this area is already the GB3 district. The principal ad that we had was the properties to the north. That actually fell within the flex district that existed before 2016. At that point, they allowed 12 units per acre in the flex district. Now, the 2016 article removed that, but the intent was should have been part of the West Chatham Neighborhood Center. This is with many of the properties that are there, they could lend themselves to the type of the visualizations that we were shown, since many of the properties are vacant and they're large.
You want to turn on your mic and say that again?
I'm sorry. It's consistent with the whole thing we've been hearing, so I move it.
Very good. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, support for Article, what did I say, 40? Article 40, a map to accompany the prospective new zoning bylaw. Tommy, in favor?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Chair supports 6-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both for your patience. This looks like a heavy lift. Good luck.
Thank you.
Still got some work to do.
Good. All right, now I'm going to go into retrograde and go back to Article 24, which is the new electronic visual speed display sign, $66,000. I think we're going to have Selectman Nicastro approach the bench as the drafter of this, or proposer and drafter of this article.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, this was presented, I think we talked about it a little bit last week. We presented this to the Select Board on Tuesday night. It was endorsed 5-0. We did hear a further refinement from the police chief. He identified, as we had requested, various streets based on either the number of speeding complaints or the number of actual violations that would be suitable for both, for either the stationary signs or the portable signs. The fiscal note was increased from 60 to 66,000 because the select board asked about what it would cost to enhance the functionality of, I think, the stationary signs to provide some feedback data for assessment of how these were working. So I think the estimate of the number of signs, I don't know if you have that in front of you, I don't have any materials with me, was in the determination of the police chief, they could purchase about 6 of the stationary signs and 6 of the portable signs. And these, of course, are the visual display signs that show, what speed you're at relative to the speed limit. And there was, in response to a citizen concern, the chief indicated, obviously, that they would work with the DPW director to try to place, especially the stationary signs, in locations that were not going to be disturbing of the piece of the abutters in terms of having flashing lights in their homes. And the chief also indicated that the portable signs, as was mentioned the other day, would be useful to move around, particularly in the season. A lot of them would probably be more in the on the beach roads leading to Nantucket Sound in South Chatham, that sort of thing. So I'm happy to try to answer any other questions.
Terrific, thank you. Dean, comments or questions for Dean?
I should mention one other thing, excuse me. There was also a draft article in front of us, which we had requested in response to the concerns about and the desires to have a 25-mile-per-hour speed limit statute adopted. And we decided that we were going to go forward only with the one before you now. We did not put an article forward for that idea.
Good decision, I think. Well, let's give credit where credit's due. So if my math pencils out correctly, Dean, $4,500 for a portable sign, roughly 14 if they were all portable. With respect to the stationaries, approximately 18 if they are all stationary. So if there's some mix of that, it's somewhere around, what, 15, 16?
I guess so. I didn't do the math.
Half of each?
I didn't really do the math, but something like that, I guess. I trust your judgment on that.
So I guess my question is, I think we had, I certainly had a sense, and I think other members of the committee had a sense when Chief Anderson was here. I think Tracy characterized it as a problem, a solution in search of a problem. And the data, other than that aberration of 51 miles an hour on Cedar Street, that traffic routinely was below the posted 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, and I forget, was it Kroll Road, I think, was similarly the case. Has consideration been given to rolling out fewer of these things?
I don't think, well, I think the intent is to trust the discretion of the police chief. If he feels that he needs 18 or 16, then they would do that. I mean, I guess subject to complaints that might come to the select board, and we could talk with the police chief. I don't think, as Tommy said the other day, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think we don't have to spend all that money if we don't need to.
That was going to be my next question.
The concern the chief had when I first had my conversation with him after the public forum was, gee, this is something I really would like to do, but we don't have any money to do it with. And so that's what led me to come up with this. And
so it would not be an unreasonable conclusion to think that we might not spend $66,000 and buy 10, 12, 15 of these things?
I think that is not unreasonable. I don't think this is like impoundment in Washington.
Okay.
I think this is something that we would defer to the discretion of the police chief.
I mean, as I think I said on Tuesday, one of my concerns is sort of the urbanization of our town with blinky lights and flashy lights, and so, okay, that's very helpful. Thank you, Dean. So if there are no further questions or comments, Kristen, please.
I just say that I'm supportive of giving the police department a few more extra dollars. I think having maybe not stationary all the time, I think I know the dump road is a problem. I try to pull out on that road every time. I don't dare walk it anymore because people drive too fast. But I think that the temporary movable ones would be very helpful, particularly as we get into the summer season. And I think, the beach roads obviously too, but the dump road which is Sam Ryder, for those of you who don't know the dump road.
And the transfer
Could
station,
use
for
a
those of you who
sign,
don't know.
could use a couple of signs.
Can't shoot seagulls there anymore. Tommy?
If it's any consolation to Christian, I very rarely go down that road.
Mr. 51. Okay. So if there are no further questions, I'll take a motion to support Article 24, a stipend for visual speed display signs. Second. Thank you. Tommy, support?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Chair supports 6-0. Dean, thank you very much. All right, we did seasonal communities, so
So,
is Gloria still on?
no, she left.
Okay, so let's just do it in order then. 54, pay outstanding tax title lien for 330 Cedar Street. I think we've heard a fair bit on this. There doesn't seem to be anybody present or online to speak for or against it. So I'll take a motion to support. Not moved.
Would you like a motion just to?
Propose to support. We'll take a motion.
So is it confusing if we make a negative motion?
Yeah, so you move to approve and then you
Yeah.
vote to either approve or just.
Yeah, I would take a
So
vote
so
to
for the, so for
approve,
the
so it's
purposes
not
of,
5-0.
so for the purposes of advancing this, I would move it.
Move to support the article.
I'll second for the
Okay.
purposes of voting on it.
Thank you. In favor, Tommy?
No.
Joanne?
No.
Andy?
No.
Kristen?
No.
Eric?
No.
Chairs against, 0-6 in our usual parlance. Okay, we go on to Article 58, Affordable Housing Trust Fund. General bylaw amendment, my understanding of that, which I think we had presented to us a number of weeks ago, was to require at least one member of the select board. Right now, the language is that it has to be 2 members of the select board serving on the trust fund, and the proposed language would change that, as I understand it, to at least 1. Comments or questions?
Did it make it onto the warrant?
It seems to have made it onto the warrant because the select board voted for it, according to my information, 2 in favor, 2 against, and 1 abstained.
And does that put it on the warrant, or does that lose?
Dean, would you like to approach the bench?
I was just going to say, it is a citizen petition, I believe it
Sorry,
just
Carrie?
automatically goes on the warrant.
Louder.
Oh, it's a citizen petition, so it automatically goes on the warrant.
This is the petition article from Carol Gordon.
Yes,
Okay, yeah. I thought the revised language, it was reviewed by town council. I thought it says not more than 1.
correct. I think it says not more than 1.
Okay.
Okay, I'm
Yep.
sorry,
And
I
there was
stand
a
corrected.
split on the select board about that.
So to be clear, it takes it from 2 to not more than 1 in the proposed language.
May I ask, an affirmative vote of 2 in favor, 2 opposed, and 1 abstain?
Yes, what's your question?
That's being reported as a select board vote. Does that put it on the warrant?
I believe, I asked that question the other night, and I was told, yes, it would be on the warrant. It's not, obviously, the motion was to recommend. Mr. Metters moved, and I seconded, and the vote was 2. So it failed as a recommendation, it failed as an affirmative recommendation.
But it is on the
But it is reported, I believe it should be, but I'm not.
Well, if need be, we'll declare it a provisional vote. Joanne, please.
May I ask a question, Mr. Chairman?
Of course you
So
may,
the vote on this determines whether we allow 2 selectmen on the Affordable Housing Committee or 1. Is that the basis of this?
We currently allow We currently require two.
Two, and we're voting on whether to reduce that amount requirement to one.
Correct.
Okay,
It sounds like it's more than, excuse me, may I speak?
Yeah, go.
Sounds like it's more than, or it's saying you cannot have two. It's just to be.
Right.
Just to be.
No more than one.
I think one's enough.
Yeah, if you believe that, make the motion.
I move we approve Article 58.
Okay.
Second,
Thank you, Tommy. Support, Tommy?
yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
Andy?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Eric?
No.
I'm going to vote against this. 4-2.
Say that again?
2-4. 4-2. Yeah, 4-2.
4-2.
Sorry. Okay. It's the little numbers that screw me up. All right, Article 59, limiting use of the Chatham Airport to FAA Design, Airport Design Group 1. We've heard a lot about this. I trust everybody received the email I sent from Attorney Jan Burke this morning, offering another perspective on the nature of the bylaw, proposed bylaw amendment. I don't see anybody here that is going to be speaking to this, so I will take a motion.
Wait a minute, miss. Go ahead. No, please, sorry.
Okay, I'll take a motion to support Article 59, which is the restriction of aircraft types at Chatham Airport, noting that the Select Board voted 0 in favor, 5 against. Joanne, any comments or questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I know it's almost impossible to adopt this petition, but what I've noticed that these are like our neighbors and taxpayers living in the same community, and they're speaking to a problem that they have. And I am respectful of that, and I'm a little bit ashamed to say that they've really been slapped down quite a bit just for offering a request for us to listen to what their problems are. And they're our neighbors and they're taxpayers, and I understand why the powers that be are saying no. I don't understand the harshness of the slapdown of a request of our neighbors and citizens. That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. Further comments or questions? Andy?
I just don't like it, the way of it being characterized as being slapped down. I'm not slapping anybody down. All right, I disagree with the petition.
I
Period.
didn't say everyone
Oh, okay, all right,
joined the slapdown.
thanks.
I said there was enough of it to embarrass me.
A little mercy is good.
Okay, thank you, Joanne. Thank you, Andy. Further comments or questions? Otherwise, I'll take a vote to support the citizen petition, Article number 59, limiting the use of Chatham Airport. Is there a motion to support? Thank you, Tommy. Second? I'll second.
Second, oh,
Okay, Joanne's got it. All right, in favor of the article, Tommy?
No,
Joanne?
no.
Andy?
No,
Kristen?
No.
Eric?
No.
Chair is against, 0-6. And with that, I think we have, unless Carrie wants to correct me, completed all our votes on the warrant.
Yeah, we already did the refiles.
Huh? We're just doing a quick double check. I know the suspension's killing everybody. Yeah, I think we're good.
only 59 articles on the warrant. Wow. Should be done in a day.
Or two. Bring your lawn chair. Dean?
I'm sorry.
That's
Yes,
okay,
you
Carrie.
have voted on everything. Thank you very much. I
the
appreciate
official ruling is
everybody's
in.
help with this.
Thankfully, the adults are back in charge. Okay, so that's done. Our report to the warrant has been submitted. Thank you, everybody, for the assistance in that. and the near-death experience yesterday of finding that it had not saved for some reason. Carrie, I want to discuss one word change with you. But otherwise, I think we're good. Anything else from anyone? Comments or questions?
You did succumb to a certain nostalgia that, you know, I share.
Thank you.
Right.
I mean, I guess thank you.
Ah,
Is that a slap down?
no.
Now stop that.
So are we off next week?
I'm off next week. You can show up.
That's good.
No, we have nothing further posted for the time, and I don't anticipate having anything, at least in anticipation of town meeting.
I thought I saw posting, that's all.
I
We had it
posted
posted for the
meetings.
25th.
Yeah, I posted meetings up until probably April or somewhere, just to make sure. We might have a meeting in like May or something, somewhere around there, if we need some budget transfers within.
And oftentimes for things like that, we'll just do a little pregame a half an hour before town meeting. But no, I think everybody can take the week off and sleep soundly and
Yep.
probably not worry about the week after that.
Right. Yep.
So I appreciate everybody's hard work. Thank you, Joanne.
I can't let this go by without thanking you, Mr. Chairman, for the time you put in on this report and the talent, and it's brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, that's pretty
really
kind.
good.
Thank you. It's a lot of work, and there was a monkey in my back there for a couple of weeks, so I was delighted to get it back and terrified when I found that the draft on my computer was from a week ago. So anyway, all's well that ends well. Motion to adjourn. Oh, Tommy?
You know, the first thing that popped into my mind when I saw these build-out plans, where are they going to get their water? I mean, I think we really have to keep a thumb on that.
Yep.
Yeah, fully agree. And I think that's why, in part, I declared it kind of the number one institutional concern of this committee.
Right. It can be the concern, but what are we doing about it?
Well, I think we just have to stay on top of them, and I think we have to encourage them to price it properly. It's clearly, I mean, look, whether one looks at the exhibit that we included in our initial report to the select board or drives around town, either on a day when it's raining and seeing all the systems running, or driving around town when it's not, but watching water just flow down the gutters of the streets.
Right.
It's clear to me, from an economic perspective, we're mispricing the asset.
Right?
Now,
Right.
what's the elasticity of pricing on water is quite a different question. And if you got some big-ass house where the lights are on all winter long and nobody's there, you're probably less sensitive to pricing than, somebody who doesn't live in a place like that. Water pricing can be very aggressive, so I think it's something that we need to be quite thoughtful about, but I think we just need to stay on top of it and make some noise if we have to.
Well, being the third lowest isn't helping us.
Correct. Yeah, fully agree. I think as I understand it, the Water and Sewer Commissioners have kind of instructed the Water and Sewer Committee to study the issue and come back with recommendations. So I think the first step will be to pay attention to that and see where it goes. And if we feel that we want to set up a working group after that to make some noise, we could do that too. So, and I also, if we're anticipating sort of a summertime hiatus, if there are things that the committee thinks we want to raise our hand on, I'm quite open to suggestions around that. We obviously did housing 4 or 5 years ago, which I think seems to have had some impact. So if there are other topics and issues that we want to tuck into, I would be fully in favor of it. Kristen, please.
Well, I think on the issue of water, so it's not just about increasing rates, because as you point out, there's a lot of folks who, it doesn't matter what the price of water is, they can afford it. Maybe there should be some money on the town's end towards a water conservation campaign. I will tell you, Friends of Chatham Waterways is going to have a water pledge campaign, but I think if the town, has lots of resources through, it's not Channel 18 anymore, but through our TV station, that I think videos and just getting the word out. I mean, we have a transient community who are here for a few weeks and don't understand necessarily the issues that the town is facing. They pay their bills and they enjoy it when they're here. So I think some, if the town could, anyway, that's my suggestion.
I think that's a very prudent idea. I often drive by the little TP signs saying, water restrictions use in effect, and it's like, is anybody paying attention to that stuff? Yeah, so I think that would be a fine idea. Anybody else? If not, I'll take a motion to undertake summer vacation or adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
support. Kristen?
Yes.
Andy?
Yep.
Tommy?
Yes.
Joanne?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Chair supports. Carrie, you rock. Thank you. Well done.
Thank you all. Thank you. I appreciate all your help. Thank you. Same.